Is magic real? And what does it have to do with your left and right hand? Greetings, mortals. Capital day to you all. I'm your host Simon. Welcome back to the Library of Gnosis. Freemasonry holds many secrets. I'm not a Freemason myself, so I'm allowed to share some of their secrets. Well, I don't know most of their secrets, but I do know their biggest secrets, and perhaps a big reason why they have been a secret society throughout the ages. Ready or not, here it goes. Abracadabra. Magic is real. Wizards and witches are not just fairy tales, but have their roots firmly planted in reality. Abracadabra. I will create as I speak. There are many forms of magic practiced. In Freemasonry and other occult circles, ritual or ceremonial magic seems to be the most common. But there are many types of magic one can practice. For instance, elemental magic. A skilled elemental mage can, for instance, call upon the elements to create rain, as seen in the Native American rain dance. A very proficient sorcerer can also call upon the element of fire and the sun to turn a cold day into a blazing hot heat record. This can also be done by accident, as someone who isn't me knows all too well. There are 4 basic elements, called the classic elements, which was first defined by the Greek philosopher Empedocles. These are air, water, earth, and fire. But there is also a 5th element, called the ether, or void, which was later added by Aristotle. This seems to be the center of the 4 elements, and is the most complex form of magic. For this is doing the rabbit in the hat trick, but it isn't a trick, but for real. It is the power to create something out of nothing. Each zodiac sign has a correlating element. So take for instance me. I was born under the sign of Aries, the ram, the first of the zodiacs, the let there be light. My element is of course fire. I am ruled by the planet Mars, and I was born in March. Mars is the planet of war, named after the god of war, Mars. Even the name of my zodiac sign comes from the Greek version of Mars, Aries. We are ruled by passion. All is fair in love and war, as they say, but in Aries' case, that would be love-making, as he is also the god of sex. I am single, ladies, just so you know. But enough about me and my amazing conquests. We are here to talk about magic, are we not? Let's explain this as a warrior would understand it. Well, the right hand carries the sword and the left hand carries the shield. We have 2 asymmetrical hands, the right and the left, which is also known as the sinister hand. The shadow of the right hand, its opposite. The right hand path, as it is called, is service to others, whereas the left-hand path is service to self. This is reflected in the sword and the shield. The shield is serving your survival, your ego, so to speak. And the right hand, which carries the sword, is the hand of justice and of service to others. There is a reason we call it a right-hand man and not a left-hand man. For a left-hand man would only be of service to himself. Your heart is not in the center of your chest, but slightly left. It is keeping you alive, after all. In Western esotericism, the left-hand path and the right-hand path are the dichotomy between two opposing approaches to magic. This terminology is used in various groups involved in the occult and ceremonial magic. In some definitions, the left-hand path is equated with malicious black magic or black shamanism, while the right hand with benevolent white magic. Another distinguishing characteristic separating the two is based upon the aim of the practitioner. Right-hand path practitioners tend to work towards ascending their soul towards the ultimate union, or reunion with the divine source, returning to heaven, allegorically alluded to as restoration, or climbing back up the ladder after the quote-unquote Great Fall. In Solomon's Lesser Key, they embrace the light and try to annihilate anything they regard as dark or evil. On the other hand, left-hand practitioners do not see it as the ultimate aim, but a step towards their goal. Left-hand path practitioners embrace the dark as well as the light in order to invoke the alchemical formula solve et coagula, dissolve and participate, confronting the negative in order to transmute it into desirable qualities. Left-hand path practitioners descend towards union with the divine to obtain godhood status. With godlike powers of their own, having reunited with the ultimate divine source energy, then once there, taking one more step, separating from that divinity, out of this creation into a new creation of their own making, with themselves as the sole divinity of the whole universe, apart from the previous creation. The godhood self-sought by the left-hand path followers is represented by the Chilapa Tamuel in the Tree of Knowledge. The right-hand path is commonly thought to refer to magical or religious groups which adhere to certain set of characteristics. They divide the concept of mind, body, and spirit into three separate, albeit interrelated entities. They adhere to a specific moral code and a belief in some form of judgment, such as karma or the threefold law. The historian Dave Evans studied self-professed followers of the left-hand path in the early 21st century, making several observations about their practices. And I quote, "They often reject societal convention and the status quo, which some suggest is in a search for spiritual freedom. As a part of this, left-hand path followers embrace magical techniques that would traditionally be viewed as taboo, for instance using sex magic or embracing satanic imagery. As Morgan wrote, the breaking of taboos makes magic more potent and can lead to reintegration and liberation. For example, the eating of meat in a vegetarian community can have the same liberating effect as anal intercourse in a sexually inhibited society." End quote. They often question religious or moral dogma, instead adhering to forms of personal anarchism. They often embrace sexuality and incorporate it into magical rituals. The use of the term left-hand path and right-hand path originated with Madame Blavatsky a 19th century occultist who founded the Theosophical Society. She had traveled across parts of southern Asia and claimed to have met with many mystics and magical practitioners in India and Tibet. She developed the term left-hand path as a translation of the term Vamashahara, an Indian tantric practice that emphasizes the breaking of Hindu societal taboos by having sexual intercourse in ritual, drinking alcohol, eating meat, and assembling in graveyards as a part of the spiritual practice. The term Vamashahara literally meant the left-hand way in Sanskrit, and it was from this that Blavatsky first coined the term. Returning to Europe, Blavatsky began using the term. It was relatively easy for her to associate left with evil in many European countries, where it already has had an association with evil and bad luck since the classical Latin era. As the historian Dave Evans noted, homosexuals were referred to as left-hand people, and while in the Protestant nations, Roman Catholics were called left-footers. In New York, Madame Blavatsky founded the Theosophical Society with several other people in 1875. She set about writing several books, including Isis Unveiled, in which she introduced the terms left-hand path and right-hand path, firmly stating that she herself followed the right-hand path, and that the followers of the left-hand path were practitioners of black magic who were a threat to society. The occult community soon picked up on her newly introduced duality, which, according to historian Dave Evans, had not been known before in the Western esoteric tradition. For instance, Dion Fortune, the founder of an esoteric magical group, the Society of the Inner Light, also took the side of the right-hand path, making the claim, and I quote, "Black magicians or followers of the left-hand path were homosexuals, and that Indian servants might use malicious magical rites devoted to the goddess Kali against the European masters." End quote. Now, don't shoot the messenger. I won't close my eyes to the reality of things just to be politically correct. But sodomy, as it is known in the Bible, is a big part of the left-hand path, or satanic practice. Just take Bohemian Grove as an example, a place where world leaders and billionaires gather every year to perform a ritual they call the cremation of care, where they burn an effigy of what is presumably either a child or a person.
Thus buried across the shadowy tide, in all the ancient majesty of death, no arch enemy of beauty. Not for thee the tender tribute or the restful grave. Fire shall have its will of thee, and all the winds make merry with thy dust. Bring fire!
only men are allowed at the Bohemian Grove, and male prostitutes are cordially invited. Richard Nixon was invited to the Bohemian Grove, and this is what he had to say about it.
Let's look at Northern California. You understand? Yeah. You know what's happened in San Francisco. Just gone. It's clear over. I know that, but it isn't just down in the ratty part of town. But the upper class in San Francisco is that way. The Bohemian Grove that I attend from time to time, the Easterners and the others that come there. But it is the most faggot goddamn thing you will ever imagine in San Francisco crowd, because it's just terrible. I mean, I don't want to shake hands with anybody in San Francisco.
Please do excuse the language, but I will not censor history for the sake of being polite. And once again, please don't hate on me for telling the truth. I don't give a single fuck if you so want to have intercourse with a pig. That is your choice, and you will have to answer for that yourself. But it seems that the left-hand path involves male homosexuality, whereas female homosexuality, which actually just seems to be the natural state of being for women, is not practiced as far as I can tell. Though, who knows what goes on in their twisted orgies. Why do I say that women are naturally bisexual? Well, I'm referring to a study posted by the University of Essex in 2017. To quote the article, "This latest research from Essex, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, for the first time, clearly defines the difference between straight and gay women, using both eye-tracking devices and direct measures of psychological sexual response. The study, which involved 345 women, found that straight women were strongly sexually aroused to videos of both attractive men and attractive women, even though they reported that they were only interested in men. Earlier this year, research by Dr. Reiger showed that pupil dilation and sexual arousal are 100% linked. A new eye-tracking laboratory has been built at Essex to help develop new methods of understanding and testing sexuality, which are less invasive and therefore more likely to attract a broader and more diverse range of participants. Now, this has been quite a sidetrack, but I know I would have gotten comments about my, well, comment on female sexuality. I've seen you beauties make out at parties before more than once in my life, I can tell you that. Now, I won't make a bigger fool of myself than necessary. So, let us get back into magic. To quote Wikipedia again, and this might just be the most strange Wikipedia article I have ever read. Quote, Aleister Crowley further altered and popularized the term in certain occult circles, referring to a brotherhood of the left-hand path, or a black brotherhood, as one who failed to attain the grade of Magister Templi in Crowley's system of ceremonial magic. Crowley also referred to the left-hand path when describing the point at which the adeptus exemptus, such as his old Christian mentor MacGregor Mather, chooses to cross the abyss, which is the location of Corozon and the illusory 11th Sephira, which the Ah, or knowledge. In this example, the adept must surrender all, including the guidance of his holy guardian angel, and leap into the abyss. If his accumulated karma is sufficient, and if he has been utterly through his own self-destruction, he becomes a babe of the abyss, arising as a star in the Crowleyan system. On the other hand, if he retains some fragments of ego, or if he fears to cross, he then becomes encysted. The layers of his self, which he could have shed in the abyss, ossify around him. He is then titled a brother of the left-hand path, who will eventually be broken up and disintegrated against his will, since he failed to choose voluntary disintegration. Crowley associated all of this with Mary, a blasphemy against Babylon, and with the celibacy of Christian clergy. End quote. Now, Crowley loved his sex magic. I recommend you go check out Robert Evans' podcast, Behind the Bastards, if you want to know more about this very odd character. Now on to more Wikipedia quotes. Quote, another one of those figures that fortune considered to be a follower of the left-hand path was Arthur Edward Walty, who did not recognize the term, and acknowledged that they were newly introduced, and that in any case he believed the terms left-hand path and right-hand path to be distinct from black and white magic. However, despite Walt's attempts to distinguish the two, the equation of the left-hand path with black magic was propagated more widely in the fiction of Dennis Wheatley. Wheatley also conflated the two with Satanism and the political ideology of communism, which he viewed as a threat to traditional British society. In one of his novels, Strange Conflict, 1941, he stated that the order of the left-hand path has its adepts. The way of darkness is perpetuated in the horrible voodoo cult, which had its origin in Madagascar and has held Africa, the Dark Continent, in its grip for centuries. In the latter half of the 20th century, various groups arose that self-professedly described themselves as left-hand path followers, but did not consider themselves as following black magic. In 1975, Kenneth Grant, a student of Aleister Crowley, explained in Cults of the Shadow that he and his group, the Typhonian Order, practiced the left-hand path. Grant's usage takes meaning from its roots in Eastern tantra. Grant states that it is about challenging taboos, but that it should be used in conjunction with the right-hand path to achieve balance. While Anton LaVey developed his form of Satanism during the 1960s, he emphasized the rejection of traditional Christian morality, and explicitly labeled his new philosophy a form of the left-hand path. In the Satanic Bible, LaVey wrote, and I quote, "Satanism is not a white light religion. It is a religion of flesh, the mundane, the carnal, all of which are ruled by Satan, the personification of the left-hand path." End quote. I think this can be perfectly represented by the so-called number of the beast, 666. It relates to the carbon atom and man. Carbon-12, one of the 5 elements in the human DNA, is composed of 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons, which equates to 666. Carbon-12 is the most abundant of the 2 stable isotopes of the element carbon, accounting for 98.89% of carbon. 666 can be added up to 6 plus 6 plus 6, which equals 18. Then 8 plus 1 is 9, the real number of the beast. A truly worthless number, as anything added up with 9 still remains the same number using numerology. For example, 1 plus 9 equals 10, and 1 plus 0. I think we can all figure that one out. Let's graduate to university level math. What's 9 plus 2? If you answered 11, you would be correct. And now back to kindergarten. What's 1 plus 1? Anyways, I won't bore you with going through all the numbers. It might seem crazy what I'm about to say, but you are not in battle with the devil. Not really. It is the yin and the yang. I've mentioned this before, but in Hinduism they had this idea of Leela, which can be loosely translated to as the divine play. As his pastime, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest of great, accepted the subtle material energy, which is invested with 3 material modes of nature. Here again we see the Trinity represented, the 3 faces of God, known as guna. To once again quote Wikipedia, there are 3 gunas, according to this worldview, that have always been and continue to be present in all things and beings in the world. These 3 gunas are called sattva, standing for goodness, calmness, harmonious; rajas, standing for passion, activity, movement; and tamas, standing for ignorance, inertia, laziness. All of these 3 gunas are presented in everyone and everything. It is the proportion that is different according to the Hindu worldview. The interplay of these gunas defines the character of someone or something, of nature, and determines the progress of life. In some contexts, it may mean a subdivision, species, kind, quality, or an operational principle or tendency of something or someone. In human behavior studies, guna means personality, innate nature, and psychological attributes of an individual. Like all Sanskrit technical terms, guna can be difficult to summarize in a single word. Its original and common meaning is thread, implying the original material that weave together to make up reality. The usual, by approximate translation in common usage, is quality. End quote. It is the alchemist's job to transmute himself and his environment, to turn an imperfect material like lead into a spiritually perfect metal like gold. Same with his soul and his environment, to reach the 7th heaven. To quote answers from the page gotquestions.org, the phrase "in the 7th heaven" means to experience great joy or contentment. The expression also implies that there are 7 heavens to be had, which is a common teaching among several religions. 2 of the oldest religions that teach 7 heavens are Hinduism and the ancient Babylonian cult. In Hinduism, there are 7 higher worlds and 7 lower worlds. The earth is the lowest higher world. The 6 higher worlds above us are places of increasing wonder and delight, where people who have accumulated good karma go after they die. When the dead have spent all the time their good deeds have earned them, they are reincarnated and return to Earth. Those who live extraordinarily pious lives can break out of this cycle and experience nirvana, a state of eternal existence. The ancient Babylonians did not teach that the 7 heavens were for humans. Rather, they divided the different heavens into 7 levels of space between the Earth's atmosphere and the spirit of the heaven. Beyond was the zodiac. Each of the 7 heavens was associated with a particular god and a celestial body: the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, the sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. The word 7 is used 735 times, 54 times in the book of Revelation alone. The number 7 is the foundation of God's word. If we include this count with how many times sevenfold and seventh is used, our total jumps up to 860 references. 7 is the number of completeness and perfection, both physical and spiritual. And just like 666, we have 777, which is God's phone number, so to say. And back to numerology, we find that 7 plus 7 plus 7 equals 21, and 2 plus 1 equals 3. Here, the concept of the Trinity shows up again. And once again, we are back to Wikipedia. It is a good resource for all of this, it seems. So, quote, Tantra is a sect of esoteric Indian tradition with roots in Hinduism and Buddhism. Tantra is often divided by its practitioners into 2 different paths: Dakshinchara and Vamachara, translated as right-hand path and left-hand path, respectively. Dakshinchara consists of traditional Hindu practices such as asceticism and meditation, while Vamachara also includes ritual practices that conflict with mainstream Hinduism, such as sex rituals, consumption of alcohol, and other intoxicants. The 2 paths are viewed by tantris as equally valid approaches to enlightenment. Vamachara, however, is often considered to be faster and more dangerous of the 2 paths, and is not suitable for all practitioners. The usage of the term left-hand path and right-hand path is still current in modern-day Indian and Buddhist Tantra. The left-hand path relation to Tantra in Buddhism. Robert Beer's Encyclopedia of Tibetan Symbols and Motives clarifies widespread taboo and deprecation that associate the left hand as dark, female, inferior, and not right. In Buddhist Tantra, the right hand symbolizes the male aspect of compassion or skillful means, and the left hand represents the female aspect of wisdom or emptiness. Ritual hand-held attributes such as the Vaira and Bell, Vaira and Lotus, Damaru and Bell, Damaru and Katgabana, arrow and bow, curved knife and skull cup, sword and shield, hook and rope, snare, etc., placed into the right and the left hand respectively, symbolizes the union of the active male aspect of skillful means with the contemplative female aspect of wisdom. In both Hinduism and Buddhism, the goddess is always placed on the left side of the male deity, where she sits on his left thigh, while her lord places his left arm over her left shoulder and dallies with her left breast. In representations of the Buddha image, the right hand often makes an active mudra of skillful means, the earth, touching, protecting, fearlessness, wish-granting or teaching mudra, while the left hand often remains in the passive mudra of meditative equipose, resting in the lap and symbolizing meditation on emptiness or wisdom." End quote. So, this broadcast has been all over the place, but you have to understand that magic is a holistic art. As above, so below. As below, so above. The Emerald Tablets. I myself am a novice magician, but I have perhaps done a few tricks in my day. Actually, with the reading or feeling of a normal deck of playing cards. Since I'm spilling the beans here and very few people have probably listened to the end, I can tell you that I guessed black or red correctly 11 times in a row. So, a 50-50 chance, then a 25% chance, and so on. And if my calculations are correct, it should be a 0.0488282125% chance that I would guess it correctly 11 times in a row. I have also been able to guess the exact card pulled from a shuffled deck. I could put a card to my forehead and feel if it was black or red. I did this on multiple occasions in front of people. They were amazed but super skeptical. So there you go. I have also met a fellow who was an elemental mage. He was the one who taught me about elemental magic. It is very freaky to see him perform it. For instance, this one time, when it was a cloudy night, and he could make the clouds open up so we could see the moon. Then he drew the clouds together again by just moving his hands. And he repeated this 5 times in a row. I could not believe my eyes. He taught me some basics. I have worked mostly with wind because his element was wind, since he was a Gemini. His father was also a Freemason. Who would have figured? I may have possibly also performed some elemental fire magic, but it was not on purpose. I managed to break the heat record of the place I was living in, so pretty proud of that if that was me. But damn, that was a hot couple of days. It was like in Mario where the sun is trying to kill you. I have only been able to achieve these feats due to altered states of mind, and there is only one way that for sure lets me do that, and that is of course through the use of very powerful psychedelics. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and trip balls, but it has been useful in my case, with of course the usual drawbacks, which you can read up about online. I will cover psychedelics and elemental magic more in a future video. So, what do you think? Am I making this stuff up to get views? Or is magic actually real? For you out there who do perform magic, are you on the left-hand path or the right-hand path? Leave it down in the comment section below.
Thank you for listening. See you next time, mortal. Remember to hit that bell button to stay notified. Subscribe for more Red Pill content. Do give it a like if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share it. If you want to support my work, you can find me on Patreon at Library of Gnosis. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Bitchute at Library of Gnosis. The audio versions of my broadcasts are available on Spotify as a podcast at Library of Gnosis. Music is produced by Coda.